It's April. It's IndieSeen. We're back to talk about not only a very special movie that is airing in New York on 420, appropriately enough. That movie is Manbaby. We are also, Sujewa and I, happy to welcome Tim Lightell, the director of Manbaby and the writer of Manbaby, the creator, the inspiration for. I don't know. You got to tell me about where the inspiration for
Well,
this movie came out
thank
from.
you so
Is
much for having
wild.
me on. Thank you so much for having me on, Ian. Yeah, we're promoting Manbaby. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
And we can
Yeah.
talk a bit about how the uh, screening came to be. It's kind of a long story, I think.
Yeah. Sujewa, I guess the origins of the 420 screening is that so Manbaby was released in theaters in 2022, actually, and I was just emailing everybody I could, sending Twitter DMs, tweeting people. Ian, I might have sent you an email, I might not have, I don't know, but I definitely I messaged Sujewa on Twitter.
Ian is a big deal in Chicago. He doesn't get back to people.
That could be, and
one of those statements is true.
And Sujewa, you got back to me and you said looks. I think you just said looks good, but not right now, or you said it looked good, but you kind of put me off a little bit. And so I said, okay, well, we got to just write everybody. You can't take no for an answer, but you can't expect everybody to even get back to you, right?
Sure, but I think the problem was in 2023, I was showing movies in LA, and you had already shown in LA, I think.
That's true. I had already done the Lemley thing, and
I think that's why I said we can't do anything right now. But let's see what happens in the future.
Yeah. And then so just this year in January, right? You reached back out, or maybe it was end of last year, but you reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing stuff in New York, and do you want to be a part of it?" And I said, hell yes, of course. I want to show the movie in New York.
It's New York.
It's New York. I went to NYU. I lived in New York for many years. I love New York. I live in Seattle now, and it's where we made Manbaby. But I wanted to be able to show it in New York, and this was a great opportunity. So
I emailed people when I got access to film noir cinema. I emailed. I contacted a bunch of people, including Tim, and said, "Who wants to show movies? This is the deal." Blah blah blah.
Yeah, no. So as grateful as I am, Ian, for you having me on, I'm doubly grateful to Sujewa for thinking of me, thinking of Manbaby, because we really want to get it out there. We want people to see it, and then of course the idea to show it on 420, like you said, Ian, I think is just a fantastic idea, because it is kind of there's a running theme of pot in the movie. I think people, when they're stoned, enjoy it a little bit more, perhaps. But I think 420 is just a great day to show this. I think it could be a great event, for people to come out in Brooklyn.
Wacky movie to be watched on 420 in Brooklyn. Tim will be there in person. So all NYC area filmmakers, come on out. Tim has an interesting story. I did an interview with him, and I found out that he's been making movies for a very long time. Early YouTube success. Then he left YouTube, and then now he's making movies for a living. Doing video work for a living and making movies on the side. So very interesting stuff. Speaking of various video stuff, COSMIC DISCO DETECTIVE RENE is doing well on YouTube.
Very well. I just watched it. I gave it a thumbs up. I really enjoyed it.
Was that the first time you saw it?
That was the first time watching it on YouTube.
Awesome.
Just in the past couple of weeks. Really got the kind of Godard meets Woody Allen kind of thing. I don't know if that's appropriate, but that's kind of what I felt.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Really was cool. I projected it, so I watched it big.
Oh, that's great. You should have taken. You should have taken a photo. I could have shared it.
I should. I will. I'll take a photo.
Stage it.
Won't be live, but we'll do it and we'll tweet it out.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it, because it's an unusual movie, not for everyone. As you can tell, 30,000, 34,000 some views, and like 1,000, 1,100 likes. So I think that's the ratio, right?
Where how are you getting so many likes? How are you paying for traffic, or are people just finding it? What do you think the source of all that traffic is?
So I'm a pro web marketer. That's how as soon as I moved to New York, I started doing web marketing for a furniture company.
Right on.
So I figured out that if you have a gazillion web blogs, social media, and you do ads, you do interviews, you can alert YouTube as to who might enjoy watching that movie. So YouTube's thing is they want to show things only to people who might like it, because if we block too many channels, that's a problem for them. It's a problem for advertisers. It's a problem for the creators. So I spent about a month setting up the promo, sending traffic, and a few hundred at first. Then YouTube figured out how to do it. So, I mean, I spend a couple dollars a day on advertising on YouTube, but I've done that before for earlier movies and hadn't had the success. I mean, everyone's tried it and hadn't had the success.
That's fantastic.
What was that?
I said that's fantastic. It's great.
Yeah, I think they have like 2.5 billion people worldwide who use the platform. So they just have to figure out who might like this and not hate it, so that everyone can move forward. So I think I think it's just trial and error. But
sure,
one of the things YouTube recommends now, and maybe they didn't say this earlier, but I saw one of their people talking about it. If you're a small channel and YouTube don't know what to do with you, share on social media, share on your own sites the link. Then YouTube will figure out, oh, these people are checking it out. These people here are checking it out. These people here are checking it out. That's the people we want to show it to, because once you have like 1 million followers, YouTube knows, okay, we're going to show it to that million. They're going to like it, right? Because they follow this guy. So it's just them figuring it out, and it's helping with monetizing. Eventually, within a few months, I should be able to get monetized. I'm getting new followers. I'm racking up view hours. Some people watch like 5 minutes. Some people watch the whole thing. So it's always a mixed bag, and YouTube doesn't really tell you too much about. They tell you roughly where things are coming from. But what's interesting is, well, I'm glad the success is happening, because that's like the goal of any filmmaker, right? To get the movie watched.
Get people to watch it, yeah.
How much money you may make or may not make, right?
Yeah, of course.
So people are watching it, they're reaching out. I'm hearing, all of my websites and blogs are doing well because of this, and it's helping me get the next project set up. My cast and crew are excited, so basically Aaliyah is excited. So it'll make making the next movie easier. But Ian, interesting thing for you, since we cover indie film, there's a group of indie filmmakers who started releasing stuff just on YouTube for free around 2020. They're called folk filmmakers. That's one group, and then there's other filmmakers who just started doing it. I tried it in 2022 with a slow romance movie, and that got like 15,000 views. And now it's at that got like 10,000 views at the time. Now it's at like 16,000 without me doing anything at all.
Nice.
Just YouTube figure out, okay, from this 10,000 we can tell who might like it. We're going to target people like that.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's interesting. So some filmmakers made features and completely gave up on the entire process indie filmmakers try to do, which is to try to get into festivals, try to get distributors, try to get reviews. They just put it up on YouTube.
Right.
Some movies got like 50,000 views, and one filmmaker, several really, but one is doing really well. Joel Haver, he's got about 1 million plus, maybe almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
He's got about 3,000 plus donors on Patreon, and he's making like 100,000 from Patreon a year. And he talked about it. This is not a hidden thing.
Yeah,
he talked about this, and the figures are out in the open. So that's amazing. So that he's basically become a pro filmmaker off of YouTube.
So, I mean, this collective that decided to put their films up on YouTube, like, is the strategy because they're, like you said, they're bypassing the traditional kind of methods of getting films not only seen but also picked up, distributed, making deals, the kind of the Sundance fantasy. Is the idea that they would use these other channels like Patreon, possibly YouTube monetization and ad revenue to support themselves and support the next work, or are these kind of like day jobbers who are doing it on the side with the hopes that it might, this exposure might lead to the next thing and the next thing and sustain themselves? It sounds like the person you talked about, found the magic sauce to be able to make movies and also get support on Patreon. But I'm just wondering, like, if you're putting out a movie if you're putting the effort into making a movie and then putting it out for free without any kind of deal, how do you sustain and also save up to invest in the next project?
These are super low budget projects, but all filmmakers, I mean, all indie filmmakers have day jobs, virtually like 99% plus. So, but these are filmmakers who take the film work very seriously and see themselves as future full-time filmmakers. I mean, some of them are just doing it once a year on the Oscars night, just as a fun project. 170 of those movies were made on Oscars night in 3 hours. But a dozen of these filmmakers are serious filmmakers, indie filmmakers, and they're using YouTube. Basically, the way I'm doing it is to get views and get support for the next project.
Well, I mean, like when you say that's interesting. That when you say support for the next project, what does that mean? As far as like awareness that you're making something and that maybe you'll, I mean, you're gonna put this out in like probably a limited theatrical run like you have done with your other films. Is that to drum up that kind of support? Or is there an idea that maybe down the line you'll set something up? You'll charge as you've done that in the past, like initial kind of like a VOD kind of release, a couple bucks to rent the movie, so you're kind of building interest in that.
So, how YouTube is useful for filmmakers are the following ways: you can get your channel monetized once you get enough views and followers. You can set up Patreon. So your super fans can donate there. You can sell merchandise. You can link from your video to your merchandise shop. You connect with other filmmakers, and once your movie is getting watched, some film critics are interested because it's something that's happening. I've already gotten a bunch of podcasts set up about it, and other inquiries have come in. So you can do YouTube, and then you can do any other avenue that is not closed off to you because you're doing YouTube. You could do, you could do Amazon yourself. I don't think Amazon will block you just because you're on YouTube. Different channels. You can do Vimeo VOD. You can do merchandise sales. So basically everything indie filmmakers do, with YouTube added as a way to promote the movie widely for free, get a lot of views around the world. So it's a good way to launch, because the other methods, the downside is unless you put a lot of money into promoting it, like on Vimeo, Film Hub, any channel, maybe not Tubi, because Tubi kind of, they seem to have their own promo happening. But on any other channel, it's difficult to get a large following unless you put a lot of money and time into promotional work.
That makes sense.
Yeah, YouTube, because they have such a large reach, 2.5 billion people, they aggressively promote your thing. They want to get views so the entire system works and the creator can benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one trick of monetization, though, is that you're going to start having probably ads pop up in in your movie ad break.
Yeah. That's already happening to some of my other movies, and probably already happening to this one.
Yeah. I'm sure it's happening on your movie on YouTube, because I saw some ad breaks.
Yeah, there you go.
Watching it, so.
Oh, that's very interesting. You're not monetized yet, but they're putting ads in your.
Yeah, if you're watching, I think I was because I was watching unsigned in. I was not watching in a, I was watching it in like an incognito window. So that's why they do it. But I mean, I think, like, to your point, Sujewa, like, yeah, like everything right now is just so in flux. I think
Right.
there's so many different ways to get eyeballs on things and get money too. I mean, there's just so many different things happening right now, and it really is kind of like the Wild West. It's a very exciting time. I think that everything you talked about is like valid for filmmakers. You know, anybody who's listening who's an independent filmmaker who, you know, is trying different things. It's like all those things I think can work, and they can work in different ways, and they can work in unexpected ways, and you just have to try them and see what works and see what doesn't, and you know, kind of trial and error at this point, because there are no more there really aren't any more gatekeepers, you know. I don't think in the film industry, I don't think that that's really as much a thing. I really liked in the movie when you guys were talking about why there's no Native American Wes Anderson, which I thought was really clever, you know, and I think that's true. I think it's a very clever thing to think about. People talk about, you know, cancel culture, but it's like everything's been canceled except for, you know, everything's been canceled except for just a few guys that get to make movies, supposedly. But now that really is changing, and it's a really cool time to be able to do things. So
Ian, at one point, we should do a show on the phenomenon of YouTube releases. I mean, this is a new thing. Prior to 2020, no one really did it in such a big way.
Right. I mean, that's there's also that feeds into kind of what you're talking about, Tim. It's not exactly the death of Hollywood, but I mean, last year was it was a bloodbath for a lot of the major studios, because a lot of these IPs that they're putting out, they're not doing very well. You know, the the people they're targeting don't care. The people they're not targeting really don't care. And so you've got like movies that are costing, like the studios losing $500 million on like one or two movies, and that's just a couple in their slate. So and you're seeing that rise in the popularity of short form content, TikTok, Instagram stories, YouTube shorts, YouTube videos, like long form podcasting. Podcasting on YouTube has gone through all these different cycles. It's like it started off with like Joe Rogan doing 3-hour podcasts, and then they're like, yeah, we want to listen to these in like 5-minute bite-sized bits or 10-minute chunks. And now the long form podcast is back in, as is the short form content. So people are used to going to these platforms for their entertainment. Like, why do I want to leave the house and pay someone, pay AMC $18 or whatever to go see some crappy movie that's going to be on demand and then free in like 3 months anyway, when I can watch.
Also, one thing I realized in one interruption, even if it's wide U.S. theatrical, we're talking about 3,000, 4,000 theaters, right? YouTube shows up on phones and other devices of 2.5 billion people worldwide. So it's an entirely different scale of distribution.
Well, it is, but it's almost, I'm not going to say unfair, but it's not exactly an apples to apples thing, because when you're paying to go see a movie at
what I'm saying is that from a filmmaker perspective, you can jump through all these hoops to try to get into some theatrical, make a little bit of money and get some press. Or if you get lucky with YouTube, that's an completely different scale of publicity.
Right. But I'm saying they're both about as realistic to attain for the average filmmaker, because if you've got 3,000 theaters and a blockbuster movie, you've got people showing up to see it. They're not scrolling past it. If they get like, oh, I want to watch something else now, they're going specifically to sit for 3 hours and watch something. You can have 2 billion people on the planet with YouTube on their phones, and they might see your thing and they're like, oh, what's this? And they watch it for, as you said, 5 minutes, 2 seconds, an hour and a half, whatever. You don't know what the engagement or the interest is. It's not necessarily going to create a cultural moment, but movies themselves in theaters aren't creating cultural moments anymore, except to talk about how terrible they are and how much money they're losing. That's the big story.
Right.
The grand narratives are gone.
Yeah, but YouTube is much more accessible than wide theatrical. Wide theatrical is a multi-million-dollar gamble.
Right. But I'm saying it all depends on what you want to do, with the platform. If you're like, yes, I can it's that potential thing. I can reach 2 billion people.
Or even 1 million people. Even 1 million people is very significant.
It is, but it's also very hard to do. right? In
Mhm.
terms of like it's
People are
the
doing
scroll
it now.
past, it's the TikTok thing, it's the scroll past thing.
Mhm.
People will stop watching TikTok TikTok
Sure.
videos are like a minute long, and people will scroll past them if they're not engaged in like the first 10 seconds.
Mhm.
And I'm just saying it's a whole other discussion, I'm saying, but it's a
Right.
very weird time. But to circle back to what you were initially talking about, it is a very exciting time for indie filmmakers, because if they want to put stuff up that's monetized or not charge anything, you're right, they can get people to see it. And it's all about like how much time and effort and passion you want to invest in this project. You can have micro budget, you
Right.
could raise, work for 3 years to save up 50 grand on the side to make your masterpiece, or whatever you want to do. It's the democratization of film is just getting, bigger and bigger. Tim, I want to talk about like how you came to make Manbaby. Like, we're talking in these kind of like theoreticals and the 2024 kind of mindset,
Yeah.
but this movie came out in 2022. When did you start making it?
Well,
I don't want to
yeah, this
necessarily go back to say, oh, was this a pandemic movie? Because that question is now 4
no.
years old. But
Oh, you guys are gonna laugh, but this is a movie a decade in the making. This movie kind of got finished maybe because of the pandemic, but a lot of this was shot in 2013 and 14, and
okay,
and we
Long
kept
time ago.
a long time ago. We
The
kept
baby is 10 years old.
well, the babies, that are in the movie at the end of the movie are all grown up. It's
Mhm.
real interesting. Those little kids are. One of the little kids is, like 13, I guess, and kind of looks like a man now,
Mhm.
which is really funny to me. But yeah, it took a long time to make this movie because we made it for very, very little money. And, if you don't have a lot of money, you do have a lot of time. And so that was kind of the theory behind that. We just took our time to try to do things as professionally as possible, but just very, very slowly. We shot a bunch of stuff. Like I said, back in 2014, kind of took a pause for some post-production stuff, and we did a Kickstarter to get the initial shooting done, and that worked out great. But the second Kickstarter actually failed, so that increased the amount of time that it took. And then the pandemic happened, and that actually gave us a lot more time in post, which was good. It was kind of like a little bit of a blessing in disguise. So it took a long time to make Manbaby. And Manbaby comes from a script that I wrote with my producing partner, Joe Campanelli. I mainly wrote it, I would say, to amuse him and make something that he would find interesting. I think that's kind of how we write when we write together. I was working, Sujewa heard this story on his podcast, but I was working in the adult entertainment industry back then. And the biggest selling clip for the group that I was working for was the ABDL stuff. So adult diaper lovers. It's a pretty niche kink.
Ian is like, gotta go. And that's the conversation.
no, I've got some research to do. No, I'm kidding.
Didn't know you were gonna get with that. But anyway, yeah, that was so that and around that same time, I also had watched the movie The Baby, 1973. There's a movie called The Baby, which is fantastic cult, kind of a ABDL exploitation movie, basically from the 70s, a horror exploitation thing with an adult baby, that I was kind of obsessed with for about a year. That I thought was just like the funniest. I mean, funniest and most interesting. It's a great movie. Check it out, The Baby, and definitely inspired me for sure to make this movie. And but anyway, I kind of circling back to what we're talking about like finding an audience. I made a lot of experimental movies when I was in school and out of school. And nobody really wants to watch experimental movies. I mean, some people do. That is its own niche, but I really wanted to make something commercial. I really wanted to make something that I thought would actually, I know you guys are gonna think I'm nuts, but I wanted to make something that was a hit. I wanted to make, Animal House or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Blair Witch Project, like something that's like super low budget, but would catch on with the mainstream. And I thought that, and it still might. We haven't had a lot of screenings yet. Who knows? Manbaby was intended to be directed at that niche audience of people who are kinky into infantilism. inspire them, light their fire to tell their friends, to tell their friends, to tell their friends, because I knew I had a core audience. I knew from my work in adult entertainment that people pay for movies with guys in diapers. Like, it's just, and girls doing it. Like, that is just a thing that exists in the world that people will pay for. And so, because I knew I had a paying audience, somewhat cynically, somewhat mercenary, whatever you want to call that, I said,
strategic thinking.
Yeah, strategic thinking. I can make some money, and inevitably that has been the case. Like, Manbaby gets lots of views on Tubi. It does pretty well on Tubi. It did a lot better when it first came out. I think word of mouth has maybe not been so good, so it's good to be on this pod and tell people about it. Check it out on Tubi. And it did really good on Vimeo right away, because there was a lot of buzz, because people wanted to see it. People liked the trailer. They thought, oh my gosh, what is this? The actors are attractive. Then I think a lot of people in the community, in the ABDL community, saw it, and they realized that it wasn't an ABL movie. It is an art movie. It's more of a comedy art movie, I'd say, more than anything else. And I think those folks maybe wanted more of a sex movie or a kink movie, which it's not, And so, yeah, the strategic thinking didn't quite play out exactly as I had hoped, but I did make the movie that I wanted to make. I think that's like the ultimate part of the story, is that, like, it is definitely like my vision. It is definitely like the art film that I wanted to make. And, it's not super commercial, but it's my attempt at that.
It's unique and weird. What did you think of it, Ian?
It's it wasn't my cup of tea. I don't. Yeah. It's definitely its own thing. It's kind of all over the place. I don't know. I'm going to ask a personal question, Tim. Do you have kids?
No, I do not have kids, and I'm actually philosophically, I will never have children. Actually, that's kind of just.
I didn't think so. Because I'm watching this. I'm a parent, and we're talking about, like, the kids in this movie are 13 and they're all grown up. I've got an almost 14-year-old who's 6'1". I don't know what's going on, what's in the water nowadays, but we're raising like mutants.
Hormones. It's
hormones,
as they say in the movie.
I mean, I get that it's a farce and everything, but there's I feel like the best comedy kind of comes from honesty. And when I'm watching it, I didn't get any sense of, this guy's pretending to be a baby, like, as part of this kind of a ruse with his wife, which that's a whole other conversation. And then later he actually regresses to becoming a baby. But in neither case did I get the feeling like this is what people who don't have kids think that babies are. And for the first part, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because if Sal is putting on this act, then, he's never had kids, his wife has never had kids, so maybe whatever. But if the idea is that scientifically he's regressing, then he should act more like a baby. And you can get farcical with it, but I didn't see anything like, no, none of that works. I'm sorry. But
it's interesting.
Yeah, but I will say, I mean, it is twisted and weird, and I liked the kind of ending, because without giving anything like away, tonally, there's you mentioned this, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre earlier. It doesn't get like nearly as brutal as that, but there is a tonal shift that, like, all these people sort of become adults, figuratively or metaphorically. I'm not going to say, because I don't want to spoil anything.
Sure.
But it ends on a note that I could not have predicted when I first pressed play on Tubi this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was wild. And I do want to ask about, like, when you were kind of finishing it and stuff during the pandemic, how much of that was like the production values and the special effects? And because I was honestly surprised by, you've got this bioengineering lab that has its own, like, commercial and logo and all this other stuff. There's some futuristic things that pop up at the end that I'm like, wait, where did this come from? This looks really, really good. And not
thank you.
It's a contrast with the rest of the movie. It's just that I wasn't expecting it in this.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you. All good things to think about. Yeah, it's just there's tons of stuff that's post-production. There's actually we joke that, like, back in the 60s, they would say, like, this film has over 100 special effects shots, you know, to kind of advertise a movie. We're like, yeah, we should definitely do that in the marketing. You know, this movie has, you know, every shot has an effect in it. But yeah, like almost every shot has some sort of like little bit of post-production trickery in it. And very intentionally. Like that's not it's not necessarily like oh, we can do this. I mean, there's some of that where it's like we're playing with technology and like, oh, we can do this, and it's fun to play with technology. But a lot of that is just to like just be more intentional about, you know, what's going on in the frame and just kind of tell the story visually, you know, as best as we can. So yeah,
the ending stuff going into the future.
Yeah,
on Tubi, and a lot of people have watched it. That I think helps the movie a lot because anyone who is weirded out and not connecting with the rest of the movie will able to see some craftsmanship and some thought, you know, serious thought going into the end part. One question I had was, you said something about Sundance showing one of the actresses in a short.
Oh, yeah. Sidney, who plays Dana, the main actor, you know, Dr. Dana Howard. Yeah, she's in a short called I think it's called Dream Creep, that played at Sundance and South by Southwest and the Overlook Film Festival, I think also in New Orleans.
Recently?
So yeah, she's just this year, actually. Just this year. And she, you know, she's been in a bunch of stuff. Like since Manbaby, she was on that show Shrill, which was on Hulu. She's done a lot of stuff. She's a pro for sure. She lives in Iowa now. Asa, who played the baby, which it's interesting that you say like you didn't quite buy him as the baby. He is a father. You know, he has a couple kids, and he said he tried to study his kids, you know, when they were younger to try to do it, but he is more semi-pro, you know, that you know, he doesn't do a lot of stuff. He does a lot of theater. He did a lot of improv and theater before Manbaby. I think he's great. And I think what's interesting, kind of maybe what you were saying, Ian, in his performance too, is that I think he's actually like the most, like, at least when he's playing Sal, he's the most realistic actor. Like he's kind of not really acting. He's just kind of being Asa, I think. And it is like in big contrast to like the other characters who are really like campy and really kind of, you know, overacting and really chewing the scenery. And so I think that's kind of interesting. And he's kind of the biggest, you know, character. He's the Manbaby. So
and we need weird movies. Not everything has to be, you know, super well done art house.
That's true. That's true.
Super bizarre. Where is this coming from? Why is this happening?
Yeah,
that's why we're showing it on 420.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think if you didn't enjoy it the first time on Tubi, smoke a little grass and see it again, and maybe you'll see it in a whole new perspective on 420.
Did we established I'm a parent, right? I'm not going to be smoking grass. Okay. But no, I do have a question because this really stuck out to me. I'm a big fan of Stuart Gordon's Reanimator. And
nice.
In that movie, there was the glowing green, you know, potion, right? Yes. The Reanimator serum. And in this movie, there is a sort of a blue version of that. And it almost looked like, I don't know if it was an homage or if it was done with the same technique. I mean, that movie is 40 years old, I think, this year. And you know, Manbaby is more recent than that. But can you tell me about the blue milk? Not in a Star Wars kind of way, but yeah, your version of it.
Yeah, that was just an idea. You know, baby blue, I think, is why it's blue and not green. Definitely a Reanimator homage. I think, you know, in the Reanimator, they're using some form of chroma key. We're using digital chroma key. It's the same kind of idea, you know. It's a practical effect with a digital addition. So
what was the practical effect? Was it
glow sticks? About that. Glow sticks. So actually, if you look in the thing where he's drinking the fake potion in the beginning of the movie, the fake potion, there's a close up where you can almost see the. I think maybe we digitally we did it pretty good, you know, where you don't see the glow stick, but there's a glow stick there, and we used a lot of practical effects. So, for instance, in the future, when they're old, that's a lot of actual, not to give too much away, but that's a lot of digital makeup. Actually, it's not all practical
What?
makeup. Yeah, but they were practically made up too. So one of the great ways that indie filmmakers can save money is to do a kind of a basic practical effect and then make it better digitally, as opposed to just saying like, oh, we'll do it all digital or we'll do it all practical. You can really meld the two and make it look very, very good. You have to really take your time with it, and have a good
You should just do
VFX artist.
sci-fi movies.
What's up?
You should just do a good sci-fi movie.
Good sci-fi movies.
Since you know so much about effects.
I do not. I mean, I know, I know the bare minimum, and Joe, I think, is more of like the art. Joe Campanelli, my producer, is more of like a VFX artist, like professionally, and so he really, knows how to he knows how to tell me like, okay, this is what we need to shoot to make it look good in VFX post.
Awesome.
So
that's got to be a great talent to have. Not only a producer.
Oh yeah.
Not only someone who understands VFX, but also someone who gets down in the weeds of the actual filmmaking to help you, design shots and stuff. Because I mean,
he's a wizard.
I'm honestly, I'm blown away by the fact that you're saying that's digital effects melded with practical. Because when I was watching it, that was another instance. Again, I'm not going to give anything away, but there's some more fantastical stuff that we see, but also we see some, really fantastic aged makeup on some of the main characters that we'd seen earlier in the movie. And it doesn't look like it doesn't look cheap. It looks like something you'd see in a Spielberg movie. Right?
Well, big shout out to my makeup artist, Rebecca Ralph Farella, who she's a pro, she's a pro makeup artist, doing, TV and movies. So it's not just Joe, Joe's doing tons of man hours on that, but then she's doing really good, practical makeup at the location too. So, I mean, shout out to both of them. You can't do these things alone. It's a team effort, and they did a great job. And I agree. I when I pitched this idea to them, I said this should look like Edward Scissorhands. When Winona Ryder's old in Edward Scissorhands, I said to me that's. So people read the script and they said, "Oh, you don't do this. It's going to look like the high school play. It's going to look silly." And I was like, "No, but it should look silly. It should look a little silly because it's a comedy. Even though we're at the end and it's sad, I want it to be a little over the top." And I think that comes across. I think it is like Edward Scissorhands. Actually, I think it's pretty good.
No, that's a great callback, because I think there's even, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't watched Edward Scissorhands in a while, but it's Burton, so there's a lot of iconic imagery, and I can kind of see a parallel between Winona Ryder and this other character that I will not name. But I want to ask, I sorry to get hung up on this makeup effect thing, but since I have you here, I'm gonna get into it. When you're talking about you've got Joe helping you to set, like, kind of design the shots with effects in mind, but you've got a practical makeup artist on set. Did they collaborate beforehand in terms of like, okay, when you're designing the practical makeup, here's what you need to consider in order to make the digital work easier, or even vice versa?
A little bit, yeah, a very little bit. In terms of color and how the costume should look. So if you notice, they wear, she wears a real high collar to kind of hide her neck so that we don't have to. So, and I think she's wearing gloves. Gloves are a part of it because the hands are really hard to animate. Things like that. And then there were some more details, but yeah, they were able to collaborate. And I think
what has been
key.
The weirdest response to the movie?
The weirdest response to Manbaby. I'm just happy anybody watches it. I'm never surprised by anybody's reaction. I'm never, I'm just happy when people watch it. I'm overjoyed that you watch it, even though, like you said, like as a dad, it maybe creeped you out or just didn't ring true in some parts. That makes a lot of sense to me, So but I'm just happy you guys watched it,
Yeah, one thing that's difficult with all movies is tone, right?
Oh yeah. If I could talk about that, like that, I mean, that again, like that is very intentional. So like the fact that you said it's all over the place actually is like kind of a positive, because the tone, intentionally is supposed to go from kind of slapstick to horror to art film. It is definitely, that's an intentional thing. And, that definitely, I can see how that doesn't work for some people, because it's like,
people are used to something else.
Right. Yeah. It's what is in service of, I guess. I mean, the master of like changing tones is, I think, Quentin Tarantino, who can, take you from comedy to crime film to horror.
But all within an overall Tarantino world tone.
Yes. And I don't think, I don't think I quite made that. But that was the idea, right? Yeah. The idea was kind of a genre bending kind of thing. And to a greater and lesser degree, it works, but there it is.
So let me ask, I mean, you've been kind of, this baby has been gestating for over a decade, and it's out in the world and kind of finding new life is we'll see with the screening in New York coming up soon.
You are into having babies, Tim. Just movie babies.
That's right.
There you go.
True. That's true. Yeah.
But
art babies.
Yes. In that ensuing decade, I mean, I know you've got like the main hustle, and then this is kind of your side hustle, your passion project. But have you worked on other films? Do you have other ideas? Are you planning the next thing, or are you just trying to see, like, put all your attention to Manbaby? And if so, like, what's coming up next?
Yeah, what's coming up next? I'm writing a new script. I want to make feature films. Like, I think Sujewa and I talked about this on his pod. Like, that's what I want to be doing is making feature films, making 90-minute romantic comedies. But I'm always like working on stuff. I'm pretty creative. In the 10 years that we were gestating Manbaby, I worked on obviously working the day job, but I was working on tons of short films. One of the producers on Manbaby, my friend Haley Park, made a bunch of award-winning shorts that I helped produce. So yeah, keeping busy on just different things and different projects for sure, but nothing concrete.
Tell him about your early YouTube experiments and successes.
Yes, and I think my Grandpa series, you can check out Grandpa Universe if anybody's interested listening that wants to check out Grandpa Universe. That was kind of my experimental stuff back in the early YouTube days. And unfortunately, Grandpa, who was played by Glenn Hefner, he passed away right when we released Manbaby. So I won't be revisiting that. But yeah, it's out there, and it kind of shows where maybe I might go again too. Actually, they say that the child is the father of the man, right? So I might go back to my origins and kind of maybe do some more experimental stuff if that feels appropriate, because it is cheaper. Manbaby definitely hit my wallet in a way that the Grandpa stuff never did.
To
so low budget.
What we were talking about earlier, some of these YouTube filmmakers are making some very, with movies that have like car heist, kidnapping, some violence, but the cost has come way down now because of the tech is so good.
Sure.
The post effects are so good and easy to access. So you might want to take a look at those. It might not cost as much to make ambitious, realistic movies anymore.
True.
Tim, we breezed right past this earlier on, and feel free to just decline to answer, but I'm curious. You worked in the adult entertainment industry. What did you do in that capacity?
Filming and editing, and a little producing, but mainly filming and editing.
Okay.
Yeah, I appeared in some things too.
All right.
I appeared in some things.
Going to do some research. And when your wife goes, "What are you watching?" You're gonna like research my.
I'm watching the director of Manbaby here. He's the Academy Awards expert. Is that? I think that title on there must be from a previous podcast that I did, where we tried to do a bit where I was pontificating about how Manbaby did not win an Oscar. I was supposed to be kind of an asshole or something about it, and I thought that would be funny. I don't know if it worked.
Oh, well, I mean, that's really, it's cool that, you're pursuing your passions, that you've got some more irons in the fire, and you're going to try, kind of pushing through into these new frontiers. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, and continue to do so. It's an exciting time to be a filmmaker at any level. And there's really, they've said 10 years ago or more, like there's no excuse not to be making movies. You can shoot movies on your phone. Like this is when, like, I think Tangerine came out or whatever. Now it's totally true with the, I know this is a curse word in a lot of people's mouths right now, but with the advent of AI, you can do a lot of things that, you know, the tech is becoming cheaper, it's becoming smarter, but it is going to be up to the individual artist to mold and shape the tools to come up with something that's unique that people are going to want to see. Because yes, it is going to be very easy to say, hey, AI, I'm going to type a prompt and you make my short film. I think there's going to be a lot of that. I think people are going to see through it. But the folks who are really going to trailblaze, the ones who are going to take the lessons from classic filmmaking, the 100+ years of movie making techniques, philosophy, failures, successes, and use the new tools to shape what the next 100 years is going to look like. And that might be happening not on a silver screen, but on, you know, these little displays in front of us, or the bigger displays if you're projecting, you know, Sujewa's films at home. That's pretty cool.
And I was just thinking about getting a giant TV to watch YouTube movies, because some of these movies are made with an eye towards showing it in movie theaters, but you know, they're not being shown in movie theaters. So someone that I talked to a couple of days ago, I forget who, was like, yeah, Tim also said the same thing. They're like, yeah, I watched it on like a 50-foot screen or a 40-foot screen, you know, 40-inch, whatever, gigantic screen, and it was almost like being in a movie theater.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, I love watching. I you know, I got my projector and I use my wall. So it's like you know, it's like a movie screen, and I sit up close because that's the way I like to watch movies. But even at home, I think it's not as good as being in a theater with a bunch of people, because there is a communal aspect. And I don't think that will ever go away. Actually, I think technology is going to get better, and there's going to be AI, and there's going to be this and 3D and IMAX, all these great things. And I think it's great. I think though, being with people in a room with the popcorn and the, you know, the social aspect of, and it's a thing to do. You go out, you watch a movie, you know, that aspect I think isn't going to go away, you know, unless there's another pandemic that locks us all away for years or something. You know what I mean? I mean, I think that is really never going away. It's like, you know, a concert or, you know, theater, you know, movies are here, and it's a great feeling to be in the movies. So I invite everybody that's in New York to come do that on 420.
That's right.
7 o'clock, and come experience that communal experience, you know?
Right. Also, Hollywood might figure out how to do well in the new environment. And, you know, they could, in 5-10 years, movies could be fully back like they were pre-pandemic.
Well, I mean, as long as the indie cinemas, I think, can hold out. Like I went to the Music Box Theater this past Friday because they're having a 3D like film festival using this new 3D technology that's only in like a handful of theaters in the country, and it's really amazing stuff. But I was watching 1953's House of Wax with Vincent Price, and it was like it was so good. I'd never seen it before, so I was just like, where has this movie been all my life, or where have I been all its life? But it was it was like a 4:15 p.m. on a Friday, really well attended crowd, all very game crowd. I'm like, yes, this is why I didn't want to watch this movie at home for the first time. Seeing it in 3D with a crowd, you know, and there was an introduction before the movie, kind of to say like, hey, here's how you handle these glasses because they're very expensive, and you know, you can't like fold them up, you can't steal them, but also like be respectful, turn off your phones. The movie is kind of silly in places, but we don't need you to make your own jokes. And when I'm watching it, the whole audience got it, because there was a lot of, it's a very funny movie, House of Wax. And this isn't turning into the House of Wax podcast, but I'm just saying, in terms of the audience reaction, everyone was like having a great time, being very respectful, laughing at all the right places, and coming out. There's just such this, like this, this feeling of community, this warmth of having experienced great art with a lot of other people. For a lot of folks, it was their first time seeing it, and it was a revelation. So yeah, I think you don't really get that necessarily with the AMC or Regal. Not that there's anything wrong with the big chains, but the art house cinemas, which I want you to tell me about this film noir venue that Manbaby is going to be at. Let's talk a bit about that.
Poster back there.
Well, I can't see that in my little screen. Tell me about the
Sure. It's I have some photos on my Twitter at Sujewa Fantastic, and I'll send you links, Ian, so you can share with people. The links, great little art house, one screen, but the screen is huge. It's like I went there, and previously I had just seen it on photos and some video, but I went there physically in like late January, early February. Um, the screen is huge. It's like a regular giant, 35 millimeter movie theater screen, and like 169 feet or whatever, right? Whatever the regular standard is. And seats 50 people. On the front, he has a little video store, and run by one guy who's super passionate about movies. New York Times did 2 articles on him, and so he works with indie filmmakers, and you can just program. You can rent the space. Yeah, it's a low cost, and you can program it. He'll help promote it a little bit, and 50 seats or a 50-seat house is great for one of these special events. If 10
Definitely.
people show up, it looks packed. So, any more questions about film noir?
Well, how is it? Is it new, or has it been around for a while? I mean, there's been 2 articles about it, so I guess it's not brand new. Or yeah, how old is it?
I think it's been around for a while, maybe 10 years or more. I'll look it up.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll have the information down below along with the screening info. I'm also going to look up this Grandpa Universe thing you're talking about, Tim, and link that below so people can check that out.
And and it's in Greenpoint, which is a very nice neighborhood. There's a subway very close to the theater. Greenpoint is like almost feels like Manhattan now, and there's a nice diner. So we're going to have a filmmaker meetup beforehand with Tim and local filmmakers. Go watch the movie, and then maybe go out to the diner again and hang out and talk some more. So it'll be a night out for filmmakers and film fans in New York. Come to it. We want it to be sold out. Tim is coming all the way from Seattle.
All the way from Seattle.
That's right.
To Greenpoint.
Hey Tim, if you have a little bit of time after this, let's do a 10-minute conversation on Rene movie and Manbaby, so I can put that out tonight as a promo thing on my YouTube.
We could do that, sure.
So
I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say you were going to do a Cosmic Disco Detective Rene Manbaby crossover, because there is that significant time jump, towards the end of the film. The missing years. Perhaps you could even have a werewolf pop up there somehow.
There you go. I'm doing an interview about werewolves soon, Ian, with a filmmaker from Baltimore on Tuesday.
Nice.
Yeah, he saw it and he liked it a lot. He's like, "Let's talk about werewolf." I'm like, "All right, let's do it."
Well, and also speaking of weekdays, I meant to bring this up earlier, but you're doing a weekly show now on Wednesdays on YouTube. We've been talking about all night.
Yeah.
So, what was the origin of that?
Just I saw that some of the YouTube indie filmmakers who release on YouTube, one thing they do is they do intros, then they do long live videos about the movies, and then so there's a lot of they release their movies, then they also do a lot of supplemental talks on YouTube, and that provides a lot of context, provides a way to connect with them as filmmakers. So I found that to be useful. So I wanted to do something like that, plus cover various indie film news that's happening. So it's Wednesday night indie film news every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Typically live, but soon we may go towards using a pro camera, better lighting, better sound. But it'll still come out at 5 p.m. Just talking about various things I'm up to, filmmaking wise, my projects, and then some news from around the indie filmmaking world every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Nice.
And Tim, what do you have besides Manbaby and the film noir screening? What would you like to promote? Anything else?
I just want to promote Manbaby. I just want everybody to come out and see Manbaby on 4/20, 7 p.m. at the Film Noir. Come meet me. Come watch the movie.
I'll be there also.
Yep, we're gonna have a good time. So anybody that's listening, come on out if you're in the New York area, in the tri-state area, even If you're in
That's right.
Pennsylvania, come on in. If you're in Connecticut, come on
Anywhere
in.
in the world, New York has 2 nice airports.
That's right. Three international airports.
Right.
But if you can't make the screening, and by all means, give it a shot.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the movie is on Tubi,
It's
so
on
you can
Tubi.
watch
Yeah,
it.
it's streaming free on Tubi, so you can watch it on Tubi. And you can rent it on Amazon too.
Okay. And as far as are you on X or the other like social media platforms? How can people?
Yeah, you can
reach
follow
out to you?
You just follow Manbaby on Twitter. It's Manbaby Movie at Twitter. Manbaby Movie. Just if you Google Manbaby Movie, you'll see all the socials and everything will come up, and that's the way you follow us, and just follow there for all the Manbaby stuff and anything new that I might be doing. I'll probably put there first. So.
And if you Google Indie Discovery LA, you'll see the website with all the Manbaby event info.
Cool.
Or
all
check
right. Well,
below Ian's links. Also,
it's gonna be a huge description on this one. Yes.
That's right. Also,
many
like,
links.
comment, and subscribe to Ian's channel. Very good channel with a lot of film news.
Well, yes, thank you. Yeah, you've done my job for me, Sujewa. So yeah, like, subscribe, thumbs up, and notifications, and all that good stuff. Check out Sujewa and Tim's stuff. Tim Lightell, it's been great meeting you and talking to you about Manbaby.
Definitely.
And yeah, I'd love to have you back on. When you've got, I was gonna say whenever, as soon as you've got your next thing going and ready to show, I want to watch it. I want to talk to you about it because
awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Sujewa, good luck. Have fun with the increasing view count, and you're well over. I keep like every day.
Right.
Tim, you asked like how'd you get so many people like look at and like the movie on YouTube, and Sujewa, you gave this long, complicated answer. The truth is, I think you're out there on Twitter or X every day promoting it, saying, hey, check it out. Hey, we're rising. We're getting this much engagement, these many likes. I think that's attracting people to go check it out. So yeah, it's been crazy checking in every day. Like, wait a second, he just passed like another 1,000 or group of 1,000 views and more dozens of likes. And yeah, it's really cool to see. So yeah, congratulations to both of you.
Thanks a lot. I mean, getting on podcasts is the great reward of making indie films. So this is what it's all about.
Definitely.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you. Take care. Everybody out there, go and support their work. As I mentioned, there'll be an embarrassingly long description down below with more links. You'll know what to do with it, but click them. That's what you should do with them. All right. Until next time, everybody, thank you very much and take care.